Grace Ellen Mercer pressed her hand against the depot post and watched her knees buckle. The July sun had burned through her last hope 3 hours ago. No one came. The telegram in her pocket said everything in 9 words. Arrangements changed. Married another. Do not come. She'd sold her mother's ring for this ticket. Traveled 18 days for this betrayal. Now, she had nothing. No money. No return. No mercy. If you want to see how one broken woman found home in the arms of a wounded cowboy, subscribe now and stay until the end. Comment your city below. Let me know how far this story travels. The heat pressed down like a fist. Grace Ellen Mercer stood on the empty platform at Silver Creek Depot. July dust coating her traveling dress. Sweat tracing lines down her temples. Her carpetbag sat at her feet. Everything she owned. Everything she had left. The station master had stopped looking at her an hour ago. Now he swept the same patch of floor over and over, waiting for her to leave. Waiting for her to become someone else's problem. She wasn't going to become anyone's problem. Grace pulled the telegram from her pocket again. Read it again. As if the words might change. Arrangements changed. Married another. Do not come. 9 words. Cornelius Drake had destroyed her life in 9 words. She'd sold her mother's wedding ring for the train ticket. 18 days of travel. 3,000 miles of hope. All of it gone in a Western Union message that cost him probably 50 cents. Her fingers trembled as she folded the paper back into her pocket. Think, Grace. Think. She had $4.37. Not enough for a return ticket. Not enough for a week's lodging. Barely enough to eat for 3 days if she was careful. The station master coughed pointedly. Grace straightened her spine. Excuse me, sir. Is there a boarding house in town? He finally looked up, took in her wilted dress, her worn carpet bag, her desperate eyes. His expression shifted from impatience to something worse. Pity. Mrs. Thornton's place. 2 blocks up Main Street. Can't miss it. Thank you. Grace picked up her bag. Her arms shook. When had she last eaten yesterday morning? The bread she'd saved had gone stale, then moldy, then gone. She stepped off the platform into the blazing afternoon sun. Silver Creek stretched before her like a promise someone else had made. Wooden buildings lined the main street. A general store, a saloon, a church with a white steeple. Somewhere in this town, Cornelius Drake was probably sitting in his fine house with his new wife, counting his silver mine profits and forgetting she existed. Grace walked. 1 foot, then another. The sun hammered down. Her vision swam. She'd been standing on that platform for 4 hours waiting for a miracle that wasn't coming. The boarding house sign appeared through the heat shimmer. Thornton's Fine Lodging. Respectable ladies welcome. Grace climbed the 3 steps to the porch, knocked on the door. A woman answered, mid-30s perhaps, beautiful in a careful calculated way, dark hair pinned perfectly despite the heat, dressed too fine for a boarding house owner. Yes. I'm looking for a room, ma'am. I was told. We're full. The door started to close. Grace's hand shot out. Please, I can pay. I have money. I just need... The woman's eyes traveled over Grace's dusty dress, her sweat-dampened hair, her desperate face. Something cold settled in her expression. I said we're full. Try the saloon. They take all kinds. The door closed. Grace stood on the porch, hand still raised to knock again. Her arm fell to her side. All right. Fine. There had to be somewhere else. Another boarding house. A church that took in travelers. Something. She walked back down the steps. The sun hit her like a physical blow. Her knees wobbled. Keep walking, Grace. Keep moving. She made it half a block before the world tilted. The last thing she saw was the dusty street rushing up to meet her face. Samuel Jefferson Cole had come to town for horse liniment and nothing else. 4 years in Silver Creek, and he'd learned to keep his visits short. Get what he needed. Leave before the widows started circling. Before the well-meaning folks started asking how he was doing, really doing, as if he might suddenly decide to talk about Martha and William to people who'd never known them. He tied his horse outside the general store and noticed the crowd first. 6 or 7 people clustered in the middle of Main Street, staring at something on the ground, talking in low voices, but not doing a damn thing. Sam's jaw tightened. 4 years as a Texas Ranger had taught him what that kind of crowd meant. Someone was hurt. Someone was in trouble. And folks were more interested in watching than helping. He crossed the street in 4 long strides. Move! The crowd parted. They always did. Sam Cole had that effect on people. 6'2" shoulders like an ox, eyes that had seen things no one in this mining town could imagine. A woman lay in the dust. Young, maybe late 20s, brown hair spilling from its pins, face flushed red with heat, breathing shallow and fast. Her dress was Eastern, quality fabric but worn, travel-stained. She'd come a long way to collapse in the middle of Silver Creek. Sam dropped to one knee beside her. "Someone get water!" Nobody moved. "Now!" A boy ran toward the general store. Sam touched the woman's forehead. Burning hot. Heat stroke. He'd seen it before in Texas. Seen men die from it when they didn't get help fast enough. "Ma'am? Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered. Green eyes, he noticed, confused and frightened. "Don't..." Her voice cracked. "Don't have anywhere." "Easy. Don't try to talk." The boy came back with a canteen. Sam poured water onto his bandana and pressed it to the woman's forehead, her temples, her neck. She gasped at the cool touch. "What's her name?" someone in the crowd asked. "How would I know?" "She was at the depot all morning," another voice offered. "Just standing there, waiting on someone who never came." Sam's hands paused on the wet cloth. He knew something about waiting for people who never came. The woman's eyes focused on his face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You didn't cause trouble, ma'am. You collapsed from heat. I just need to rest. Just for a minute. Then I'll go." "Go where?" She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Her eyes filled with tears that she was too dehydrated to actually cry. Sam made a decision. He'd regret it later. He always did when he let himself care about something. But Martha's voice echoed in his head the way it did sometimes when he was about to walk away from someone who needed help. "Samuel Cole, don't you dare." "Can you stand?" I think so." He helped her up. Slowly. Carefully. She weighed almost nothing. When had she last eaten my bag? "I've got it." He picked up the carpet bag with one hand, kept his other arm around her waist to steady her. "My wagon's around the corner. You're coming back to my ranch until you're well enough to travel." "Sir, I can't possibly." "You can, and you will." Sam started walking, half carrying her toward his wagon. "My housekeeper will see to you. Everything proper and respectable. But I'm not leaving you here to die in the street while these folks stand around watching." His voice carried. The crowd had the grace to look ashamed. "I don't even know your name," the woman said weakly. "Cole? Samuel Cole. Most folks call me Sam." "I'm Grace. Grace Ellen Mercer." "Well, Miss Mercer, let's get you out of this sun." He lifted her onto the wagon seat like she weighed nothing, set her bag beside her, climbed up and took the reins. As they pulled away from Main Street, Sam felt eyes on his back. He didn't turn around. Let them talk. They'd been talking about him for 4 years anyway. One more thing wouldn't make a difference. The road to Cole's ranch wound through dry grassland dotted with cattle. Grace pressed the wet bandana to her neck and tried to make sense of what was happening. A stranger had picked her up off the street. A stranger was taking her to his home. She should be afraid. Every instinct said she should be afraid. But Samuel Cole sat beside her in silence, eyes on the road, asking nothing, expecting nothing, just helping. She'd forgotten men could be like that. Mr. Cole. Sam. Sam. The name felt strange on her tongue. Why are you doing this? He didn't answer right away. The wagon wheels creaked. A hawk circled overhead. Because someone should. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. They rode in silence for another mile. Grace's head cleared slowly. The heat was brutal, but the movement created a small breeze. She drank water from the canteen he handed her without being asked. The woman at the boarding house, she finally said. Mrs. Thornton. She wouldn't give me a room. Sam's jaw tightened. Rose Thornton doesn't give anything without expecting something in return. She looked at me like I was something dirty. That's Rose. Why? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, you came to town alone. No husband, no family. In her book that makes you suspicious. Or competition. Competition for what? Sam didn't answer. Grace studied his profile. Strong jaw, weathered face eyes that had seen hard things. He wasn't handsome exactly, but there was something solid about him, something real. You're not going to ask why I was at the depot, she said. Why no one came for me. Not my business. Most people would ask. I'm not most people. The ranch appeared over a low rise. Grace drew a sharp breath. It wasn't grand, but it was beautiful. A two-story house with a wide porch, a barn and corral, fenced pastures stretching toward distant mountains, flowers. Actual flowers planted along the porch railing. Someone has a garden, she said without thinking. Nettie, my housekeeper, says a house without flowers isn't a home. As if summoned by her name, a figure appeared on the porch. An older black woman, gray hair, wrapped in a colorful cloth apron dusted with flour. She shaded her eyes against the sun and watched them approach. Lord have mercy, she said as Sam helped Grace down from the wagon. Samuel Cole, what have you brought home this time? Miss Grace Mercer. She collapsed in town. Heat stroke. Nettie was already moving, taking Grace's arm with gentle firmness. You look like death warmed over child. Come inside. I've got cool water and soup and a bed that's been waiting for someone to use it. Ma'am, I don't want to impose. Impose, girl, this house has been too quiet for 4 years. You're not imposing, you're answering a prayer I didn't know I'd prayed. Nettie guided her up the porch steps. Sam, bring her bag, and wash up before dinner. You smell like horse. The house wrapped around Grace like a cool embrace. Clean wooden floors, a stone fireplace. Books, more books than she'd expected, lining shelves along one wall. Everything simple but cared for. Nettie led her to a small bedroom at the back of the house. A bed with a blue quilt. A window looking out over the garden. A pitcher and basin already filled with water. This was my daughter's room, Nettie said quietly. Before the war took her. It's been empty too long. I'm so sorry. Hush now. Grief's an old friend of mine. We've made our peace. Nettie helped Grace sit on the bed. You rest. I'll bring soup. And when you're ready, if you want to talk, I'll listen. If you don't, that's fine too. She left. Grace sat in the quiet room, looking at the blue quilt, the sunlight through the window, the small vase of wildflowers on the dresser. She'd come west to marry a wealthy man. She'd ended up in a stranger's spare room eating soup made by a housekeeper who'd lost her daughter. Grace pressed her hands to her face and let the tears finally come. Dinner was quiet. Sam ate without speaking. Grace managed half a bowl of soup before her stomach protested. Nettie watched them both with sharp, knowing eyes. You'll need clothes, Nettie said finally. That dress needs washing and you can't wear it while it dries. I have another dress, in my bag. That one needs washing too, I expect. Grace flushed. Yes, ma'am. I've got some things that might fit. We'll sort it out tomorrow. Nettie stood, began clearing dishes. Sam, don't you have something to say? Sam looked up from his plate, met Grace's eyes. You're welcome to stay until you figure out your next step. Long as you need. Nettie's here, so everything's proper. Nobody can say otherwise. Thank you. Grace's voice came out small. You've been... I don't know how to... Don't need thanks. Just need you to get well. He stood, grabbed his hat from the hook by the door. Where are you going? Nettie asked. Barn. Check on the mare. He was gone before Grace could say anything else. Nettie sighed. Don't mind him. He's forgotten how to talk to people, especially women. His wife died 4 years ago, her and the boy. Sam's never been the same. Nettie's hand stilled on the dishes. He blamed himself, still does. Thinks if he'd been home instead of chasing outlaws, he could have saved them. Grace thought of her father dying in her arms. The helplessness, the guilt of surviving. I understand that feeling. Nettie looked at her sharply. I expect you do. Get some rest, child. Tomorrow's soon enough for hard conversations. Grace woke to sunlight and the sound of a child's laughter. She sat up quickly. The blue quilt fell from her shoulders. She was still wearing yesterday's dress she'd been too exhausted to change. The laughter came again, high and bright from somewhere outside. Grace went to the window. In the yard below, a little girl chased a chicken. Maybe 8 years old, brown braids, flying bare feet, kicking up dust. Sam stood by the corral fence, arms crossed, watching with something that might have been a smile. The child caught the chicken, held it up triumphantly. Got her, Mr. Sam? She was headed for the road. Good work, Molly. Put her back with the others. The girl ran toward the chicken coop, the bird tucked under her arm like a football. Grace watched Sam's face as he watched the child. The hardness was gone. Something softer lived underneath. Something broken, but still tender. Her name's Molly. Grace turned. Nettie stood in the doorway with a tray. Coffee, biscuits, jam. Her parents worked this ranch, died last winter. Fever took them both in the same week. Nettie set the tray on the small table by the window. Sam couldn't bear to send her to an orphanage, so she stays. He has a good heart. He has a wounded heart. But yes, underneath all that silence, there's a good man. Nettie poured coffee. Now, you ready to tell me why you were standing alone at that depot, waiting for someone who never came? Grace took the coffee cup, wrapped both hands around it, even though the room was already warm. I came west to get married. And the groom married someone else. I got a telegram at my last stop. 9 words telling me not to come. Grace's voice stayed steady. She was proud of that. I'd sold everything for the ticket. There was no going back. Nettie sat down across from her. Who was he? Cornelius Drake. The name landed like a stone. Nettie's expression shifted, hardened. The mine owner. You know him. Everyone knows him. He owns half this town, bought the other half. Nettie's hands clenched on her apron. That man's got a wife already, been married 6 months. His business partner's daughter. Grace set down the coffee cup before she dropped it. 6 months. He was courting you while he was engaged to someone else. Yes, he wrote letters. For a year. Promised. Grace couldn't finish. That snake. Nettie's voice was soft but fierce. That lying, two-faced snake. I should have known. I should have asked more questions. I was just so... Grace pressed her hands to her face. My father died owing money. My mother's sick. My sister needs care. I thought if I married well, I could save them all. I was desperate. And Cornelius knew it. Nettie reached across the table, took Grace's hands. Child, listen to me. What that man did isn't your fault. Desperation doesn't make you stupid. It makes you human. I feel stupid. You feel betrayed. There's a difference. Footsteps on the porch. Sam's voice low. Molly, go wash up. He appeared in the doorway, saw the 2 women holding hands, saw the tears on Grace's face. His jaw tightened. What happened? Cornelius Drake, Nettie said flatly. Sam went very still. What about him? He's the one who brought Miss Grace out here, promised to marry her, left her stranded with nothing. Something dangerous flickered in Sam's eyes. Grace had seen that look before on men who were about to do violence. Sam! Nettie's voice was sharp. Don't. He let her collapse in the street, while he sits in that big house. And what are you going to do? Ride into town and shoot him? That'll help her how? Sam's hands clenched into fists. For a long moment he stood there rigid with fury. Then he took a breath. Let it out slow. You're right. His voice was rough. You're right. He turned to Grace. His eyes were still hard, but not at her. You stay here, long as you need. Drake can go to hell and so can anyone who takes his side. Mr. Cole, Sam, I can't just, you can, you will. He stepped closer. I spent 8 years as a Texas Ranger. I know men like Drake. They count on people being too scared to fight back, too alone to matter. He crouched down so they were eye level. Grace saw the scars on his hands, the weathering of years in the sun, the pain that lived behind his eyes. You're not alone anymore, Miss Grace. And you sure as hell matter. Don't let anyone tell you different. He stood, walked out. Grace heard his boots on the porch, then silence. Nettie smiled softly. Like I said, underneath all that silence, there's a good man. 3 days passed. Grace ate, rested, helped Nettie in the kitchen even when Nettie insisted she didn't need to. She needed to be useful, needed to earn her place. Molly followed her everywhere, questions tumbling out faster than Grace could answer. Where are you from? Is Philadelphia far? Do they have chickens there? Do you like horses? Mr. Sam has the best horses. Can you braid hair? Nettie tries, but her fingers hurt sometimes. Are you going to stay forever? I don't know yet, sweetheart. I hope you stay. It's nice having someone else here. Nettie's nice, but she's old. You're not old. Thank you, I think. Sam kept his distance. Grace saw him at meals, brief and silent. Saw him working in the barn in the fields, always moving, always busy. As if stopping might kill him. On the 4th morning, Grace found him on the porch before dawn, coffee in hand, staring at the mountains. She hesitated, then sat down in the chair beside him. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally Sam said, You're feeling better. Yes, thanks to you and Nettie. Mostly Nettie. You too. Silence. A bird called somewhere in the darkness. I should figure out my next step, Grace said. I can't stay here indefinitely. Why not? Because people will talk. It's not proper. A woman alone in a bachelor's home? Nettie's here. That won't be enough for some people. Sam turned to look at her. In the gray pre-dawn light, his face was unreadable. Do you care what some people think? I care about not making trouble for you. You've been kind. I don't want to repay that by ruining your reputation. Something flickered across his face, almost like a smile. Miss Grace, my reputation in this town died about the same time I stopped going to church socials and started telling busybodies to mind their own business. Nothing you do can make it worse. Still. Stay. The word came out rough, almost reluctant, at least until you have somewhere real to go. I've got room. Nettie wants the company. Molly, he paused. Molly hasn't smiled this much since her folks died. Grace felt something warm bloom in her chest, something dangerous. I have skills, she said quickly. My father was an apothecary. I can make medicines treat minor injuries. Maybe I could be useful. You're already useful. I mean really useful. To the ranch, to the community. Sam considered this, nodded slowly. We could use someone who knows healing. Nearest doctor's 2 days' ride. Ranch hands get hurt. Animals get sick. He met her eyes. You want to earn your keep that bad? I need to, for myself. He understood. She could see it in his face, the need to matter, to contribute, to not be charity. All right then, we'll figure it out. He stood. But first breakfast. Nettie's making pancakes. He offered his hand to help her up. Grace took it. His palm was rough with calluses, warm and strong. He held her hand just a moment longer than necessary, then let go. Coming. They walked into the house together as the sun rose over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Inside, Nettie was singing. Molly was setting the table. Coffee was brewing. It felt like home. Grace tried not to think about how dangerous that feeling was. How much it would hurt when she had to leave. But for now, just for now, she let herself stay. A week turned into 2. Grace learned the rhythms of the ranch. Coffee before dawn. Breakfast when the work allowed. Long afternoons in the kitchen with Nettie learning to cook for men who worked hard and ate harder. Evenings on the porch, watching the sun paint the mountains red. She learned other things too. Sam Cole slept with his door open. He checked the locks 3 times before bed. He never sat with his back to a window. Nettie told her why. Piece by piece over dishwater and flour and quiet moments. They came at night, the men who killed Martha and William. Sam was in Abilene chasing a murderer, 100 miles away when it happened. Grace's hands stilled on the bread dough. How did he find out? Telegram. Same way you got your bad news. Nettie's voice went soft. He rode 3 days without stopping. Got there in time to bury them. That's all. And the men who did it, Sam found them. 6 months later, every last one. Nettie met her eyes. That's when he quit being a ranger. Said he'd used up all his justice. Didn't have any left. Grace thought about that. About a man who'd loved so deeply that losing it had hollowed him out. She understood hollow. That night at dinner she caught Sam watching her. Not in a way that made her uncomfortable. More like he was trying to figure something out. You're staying, he said. Not a question. If you'll still have me. I said you could stay. I meant it. Molly looked up from her plate. Does that mean Miss Grace is family now? Silence dropped like a stone. Sam's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Nettie suddenly became very interested in her biscuit. Grace felt heat rise to her cheeks. I think it means Miss Grace is our friend, Nettie said carefully. And friends help each other. That's all. Molly considered this. Okay, can friends braid hair because Miss Grace braids better than anyone? The tension broke. Sam almost smiled. Eat your dinner, Molly. Yes, Mr. Sam. Grace caught Nettie's eye across the table. The older woman winked. Something had shifted. Grace wasn't sure what, but she felt it like a change in the weather. Tomorrow would be different. She just didn't know how different. The trouble came 3 days later. Grace was in the barn treating a gash on Jake's arm. Jake Redfeather, Sam's foreman, had tangled with barbed wire while mending fences. The cut was deep, but clean. Hold still, Grace said, threading the needle. You sure you know what you're doing? My father taught me to stitch before I could write my name. Hold still. Jake held still. He was a quiet man, half Cheyenne, half Irish, with eyes that missed nothing. Grace had learned he'd known Sam since childhood. Trusted him with his life. You're good at this, Jake said as she worked. I'm adequate. Adequate doesn't keep a steady hand when there's blood. Adequate doesn't know how to numb the pain first. He studied her face. You've done this before. Serious injuries. My father got sick. Near the end I did everything. Changed bandages, mixed medicines, held his hand when he couldn't breathe. Grace tied off the last stitch. There, don't get it wet for 3 days. Jake flexed his arm experimentally. Thank you, Miss Grace. Just Grace. Grace. He stood. Sam's lucky he found you. I think I'm the lucky one. Maybe you're both lucky. Jake touched his hat. Maybe that's how it's supposed to work. He left. Grace was cleaning her instruments when she heard the horses. Multiple horses, moving fast. She stepped out of the barn and saw them. 3 riders coming up the main road. One of them she recognized instantly. The woman from the boarding house, Rose Thornton. The other 2 were men. One wore a deputy's badge. The other wore a suit too fine for ranch country. Grace's stomach turned to ice. She knew that suit. She'd imagined it at their wedding. Cornelius Drake had come to call. Sam appeared from nowhere. One moment Grace was alone. The next he stood beside her, positioned slightly in front, protective without being obvious. Drake, Sam's voice could have frozen water. You're on my land. Cornelius Drake dismounted smoothly. He was handsome in a polished way. Dark hair, oiled back teeth, too white, smile too practiced. Everything about him screamed money, and nothing about him suggested soul. Sam, good to see you. Wish I could say the same. State your business and leave. Drake's eyes found Grace. Something flickered there. Annoyance, maybe. Or calculation. Actually, my business is with Miss Mercer. Grace stepped forward. Sam's hand brushed her arm. A warning. I have nothing to say to you, Mr. Drake. Now, Grace, let's not be hasty. Drake spread his hands in a gesture of false peace. I came to apologize. The way things happened, it wasn't right. I should have handled it better. You should have told me you were already engaged. The words hung in the air. Rose Thornton's eyebrows rose. The deputy shifted in his saddle. Drake's smile tightened. There were complications. Business matters. Things you wouldn't understand. I understand perfectly. You needed your partner's money more than you needed me, so you threw me away like garbage and didn't care if I lived or died. That's not... I collapsed in the street, Mr. Drake, in front of the whole town. Where were you? Drake's composure cracked, just for a second. Then the mask slid back into place. I've come to make amends. I have a ticket. Return passage to Philadelphia, first class, plus enough money to settle your family's debts. He reached into his coat. Consider it compensation for your trouble. He held out an envelope, thick with bills. Grace stared at it. Enough money to save her mother, her sister, enough to go home and pretend this nightmare never happened. All she had to do was take it and disappear. Sam said nothing. His jaw was tight, but he didn't move. The choice was hers. Grace stepped forward. Drake smiled. She took the envelope from his hand, felt the weight of it, looked at the man who had destroyed her life with 9 words, and thought he could fix it with cash. Then she threw the money in his face, bills scattered in the summer wind. Drake sputtered, grabbing at them, dignity forgotten. Keep your blood money, Grace said. I don't want anything from you. Not your apology, not your charity, nothing. You ungrateful... Drake caught himself, smoothed his coat. You'll regret this. I already regret the day I answered your first letter. Anything else? Drake's eyes went cold. The mask was gone now. This was the real man underneath. Petty, vicious, dangerous. You think you can stay here in my town, playing house with this burned-out ranger? He laughed. Ugly sound. I own Silver Creek, sweetheart. The bank, the mines, the sheriff, half the businesses on Main Street. You've got no money, no family, no friends. How long do you think you'll last? Sam moved. 1 second he was beside Grace. The next he had Drake by the collar, lifted off his feet, face inches apart. Threaten her again. Sam? The deputy started. Shut up, Vernon. Sam didn't look away from Drake. I said threaten her again. See what happens. Drake's face went purple. His feet kicked air. This is assault. I'll have you arrested. You'll what? Sam's voice was terrifyingly calm. Press charges. Sure. Let's go to court. Let's tell a judge how you lured a woman across the country with marriage promises while you were already engaged. How you left her stranded without a cent. How you came here to buy her silence. He dropped Drake in the dirt. Get off my land. Don't come back. Drake scrambled up brushing dust from his suit. His hands were shaking. With rage or fear, Grace couldn't tell. This isn't over, Cole. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. Rose Thornton hadn't said a word, but her eyes were fixed on Grace with something like recognition, like she'd just identified the enemy in a war Grace didn't know they were fighting. Deputy, Rose said smoothly. Perhaps we should go. Vernon hesitated. He clearly wanted to assert authority, but he looked at Sam's face and thought better of it. This isn't proper, Cole. Woman living here with you. People are talking. People are always talking. That's all they're good for. The three riders turned their horses. Drake looked back, once poison in his eyes. You chose wrong, Grace. You'll see. They rode away. Dust settled. Silence returned. Grace realized she was shaking. You shouldn't have done that, she said. Now he'll make trouble for you. He was already going to make trouble. At least now he knows I'll make it right back. Sam! Grace! He turned to face her. His eyes were fierce, protective. That man left you to die. I watched you unconscious in the dirt because of him. You think I'm going to stand here and let him intimidate you? I can fight my own battles. I know you can, but you don't have to fight them alone. Something cracked in Grace's chest, a wall she'd been building for years. Defense against disappointment, against hope, against the terrible vulnerability of needing someone. Why? Her voice broke. Why do you care what happens to me? Sam was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Because I spent 4 years not caring about anything, and it was killing me. You showed up half dead on the hottest day of summer and something woke up. Something I thought was buried with Martha. He stepped closer. Close enough to touch if she wanted. I'm not good at this. Words, feelings, any of it. But I know this: you matter. You matter to Nettie, to Molly, to this ranch. You matter to me. Grace couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight. Stay, Sam said. Not as a guest. Not as charity. Stay because this is where you belong. She looked at him. This wounded man who'd carried her out of the dust, who'd stood between her and danger, who'd thrown away his standing in town for a stranger. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. Something eased in his face. Not a smile. Something deeper. Good. Now come inside. Nettie's going to want to hear about this. They walked toward the house together. Behind them, the dust from Drake's departure still hung in the air like a promise of things to come. Grace knew this wasn't over. Drake would strike back. Rose Thornton would sharpen her claws. The town would whisper and judge and condemn. But for the first time in months, she wasn't afraid. She had something worth fighting for. The next morning, trouble found them faster than expected. A rider came just after dawn. Young ranch hand from the Morrisons spread 10 miles south. Face white with panic. Mr. Cole, my pa needs help. He was thrown from his horse. Legs broke bad. Bone came through the skin. Sam was already moving toward the barn. How long ago? 4 hours. Ma tried to set it, but she couldn't. She's afraid he'll lose the leg. Grace grabbed his arm. Take me with you. Grace? I've set compound fractures before. If the bone's been out for 4 hours, infection's already starting. He needs proper treatment now, not when you ride back to fetch the doctor 2 days away. Sam hesitated. 1 second. 2. Get your bag. Grace ran. They rode hard through the morning heat. Grace clung to Sam's waist on the back of his horse, her medical bag bouncing against her hip. The young hand led them across dry grassland and through shallow creek beds. The Morrison ranch appeared over a rise, small and scrappy compared to Sam's place. A woman stood on the porch, hands twisted in her apron. Thank God you're here. Grace was off the horse before it stopped moving. Where is he? Inside. The bedroom. Oh Lord, there's so much blood. Ma'am? Grace gripped her shoulders, firm but gentle. I need hot water, clean cloth. Any whiskey you've got. Can you do that? The woman nodded frantically. Then do it. Now. Inside, the smell hit her first. Blood and sweat and the sickly sweet beginning of rot. Tom Morrison lay on the bed, face gray with pain, leg twisted at an angle that made Grace's stomach turn. The bone jutted through his skin, white against red. The wound was already angry, swelling with the beginning of infection. 4 hours. She had maybe 2 more before it spread too far. Grace rolled up her sleeves. Mr. Morrison, I'm going to fix your leg. It's going to hurt worse than anything you've ever felt, but if I don't do it, you'll lose the leg or die. Do you understand? Morrison's eyes focused on her face. Who are you? Someone who knows what she's doing. Sam. I need you to hold him down. Sam moved to the head of the bed, put his hands on Morrison's shoulders. Tom. Trust her. She knows her business. She's a woman. She's a healer. Best one I've seen. Now bite down on this. Sam shoved a leather strap between Morrison's teeth. And for God's sake, don't kick. Grace worked fast. She cleaned the wound, examined the break. 2 places, she realized. The bone had shattered, not just snapped. She'd have to manipulate the fragments back into place. Morrison screamed through the leather strap. Grace didn't stop. Her hands moved with certainty, born of desperate nights watching her father fade. She'd learned to set bones on kitchen tables, stitch wounds by candlelight, brew medicines from memory when the pharmacy was empty. She'd learned because there was no one else. Now those skills poured through her fingers. Cleaning, setting, aligning, stitching. Morrison passed out halfway through. Blessing for both of them. When it was done, Grace stepped back. Her hands were covered in blood. Her dress was ruined. Every muscle in her body shook with exhaustion. But the leg was straight. The wound was closed. And the man was breathing. Sam appeared beside her, put a hand on her shoulder. That was something. That was field surgery. Messy and desperate, and nothing like what he deserved. You saved his leg. Probably his life. Grace looked at her bloody hands. We'll see. Infection's the real enemy now. I'll need to stay and watch him, change the dressings, make sure fever doesn't take hold. I'll stay with you. You have a ranch to run. Jake can handle it. His voice brooked no argument. I'm not leaving you here alone. Mrs. Morrison appeared in the doorway, took in the scene, burst into tears. Is he going to? He's going to live, Grace said. The leg will heal, but he needs to stay off it for 6 weeks, minimum. 6 weeks? Mrs. Morrison went pale. But the cattle, the fences, who's going to? I'll send men, Sam said quietly. From my place. They'll help with the work until Tom's back on his feet. Mr. Cole, we can't afford. You're not paying. This is what neighbors do. Mrs. Morrison stared at him, then at Grace, then back at Sam. The whole town says you're cold, heartless. They say you don't care about anyone since... I know what they say. They're wrong. Mrs. Morrison took Grace's bloody hands in hers. Thank you, both of you. God bless you both. Word traveled fast in small communities. By sundown, 3 more families had sent riders asking for Grace. A baby with fever, an old man with chest pains, a ranch hand who'd been gored by a bull and was too proud to admit it was getting worse. Grace went to all of them. Sam rode with her every time. By the end of the week, half the county knew her name. Grace Mercer, the healer at Cole's ranch. The woman who'd saved Tom Morrison's leg with nothing but steady hands and stubborn will. The other half of the county knew something else. She was living in sin with Sam Cole, a shameless Eastern woman who'd been jilted by Cornelius Drake and taken up with another man before the dust settled. She was trouble. She was dangerous. She was stealing a widower's heart and probably his money too. Grace heard the whispers through Nettie, through Molly's confused questions about what kept woman meant, through the cold shoulders and turned backs when she went to town for supplies. She didn't care. People could say what they wanted. She had work to do. But the whispers were getting louder, and somewhere in Silver Creek, Cornelius Drake was waiting for his moment to strike. 3 weeks after the confrontation it came. Grace was alone at the ranch. Sam had ridden out to check on distant fences. Nettie had taken Molly to town for fabric. Jake and the hands were scattered across the property. She was in the kitchen when she heard the knock. Strange. People usually called out announced themselves. Ranch etiquette. Grace wiped her hands on her apron, walked to the door. Rose Thornton stood on the porch. "Miss Mercer, may I come in?" Grace's instincts screamed danger, but she opened the door anyway. Rose swept in like she owned the place. Her eyes cataloged everything. The clean floors, the books on the shelves, the flowers Nettie kept on every surface. "Cozy," she said. "I can see why you've made yourself comfortable." "What do you want, Mrs. Thornton?" "Straight to business. I appreciate that." Rose turned to face her. "I want you to leave." "Excuse me." "Leave Silver Creek. Take whatever money Sam's given you and go back where you came from, before this goes any further." Grace felt ice spread through her veins. "This? Your little arrangement with Sam Cole. Playing house. Pretending to be respectable while you warm his bed." "I'm not—" "Don't." Rose held up a hand. "I don't care what you are or aren't doing. I care about what people think. And people think you're his mistress. That means he's off the market. That means 4 years of patience on my part has been wasted." The truth hit Grace like cold water. "You want Sam." "I've wanted Sam since the day his wife died. I've been patient. Proper. I've waited for him to finish grieving and notice that I'm right here." Rose's voice went brittle. "Then you show up, half dead and pathetic, and suddenly he's riding to your rescue, standing up to Cornelius Drake, sending men to help neighbors. He's alive again. And you did that." Grace said nothing. "It should have been me," Rose whispered. "I'm the one who stayed, who waited, who never gave up. And you just stumbled into his life and took everything." For a moment, Grace almost felt sorry for her. Then Rose's expression hardened. "Leave by the end of the month, or I'll make sure every door in this county closes to you. The church, the stores, the families you've been helping." Her smile turned cruel. "I'll tell them what you really are. A jilted woman, desperate, immoral. I'll make sure no one trusts you with their sick children again. You'd hurt innocent people to get what you want. I'd do whatever it takes." Rose walked to the door, paused with her hand on the frame. "1 month, Miss Mercer. Then you're gone." She left. Grace stood alone in the kitchen. Her hands were shaking. Her heart pounded against her ribs. 1 month. She could run, save herself the humiliation, protect Sam from the storm that was coming. Or she could stay, fight, risk everything on a man she'd known for 3 weeks and a home she had no right to claim. Grace closed her eyes, thought of Sam's voice in the barn. "You matter." Thought of Molly's laughter, Nettie's wisdom, the Morrison baby sleeping peacefully after the fever broke. She opened her eyes. "No," she said to the empty room. "I'm not running anymore." Grace didn't tell Sam about Rose's visit. She should have. She knew that. But watching him come through the door that evening, dusty and tired, something in her couldn't bear to add another burden to his shoulders. "You're quiet tonight," he said over dinner. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About whether I'm doing more harm than good, being here." Sam set down his fork. "Who said something to you?" No one. Grace. She met his eyes. He saw too much this man. Read her like she was one of his books. It doesn't matter who said what. What matters is whether it's true. It's not. How do you know? Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he pushed back from the table, walked to the window, stood there with his back to her. After Martha died, I didn't speak for 3 months. Not a word. Nettie brought food. Jake handled the ranch. I just existed, like a ghost in my own house. Grace waited. One day Nettie told me she was leaving, said she couldn't watch me die by inches anymore, that if I wanted to join Martha in the ground, she'd dig the grave herself, but she wasn't going to pretend everything was fine while I rotted from the inside. He turned. His eyes were bright with something Grace couldn't name. I started talking again that day. Started eating, started working. Not because I wanted to live, but because I didn't want to hurt the people who'd stayed. Sam crossed back to the table, sat down across from her. You understand what I'm saying. You stayed for them, not for yourself. That's how it started. But somewhere along the way, the reason changed. Living became something I wanted, not just something I owed. He reached across the table, took her hand. You're part of that now, Grace. Part of why I want to wake up in the morning. So when you ask if you're doing harm by being here, his grip tightened. The answer is no. You're doing the opposite. Grace's eyes burned. Sam, you don't have to say anything. I'm not asking for anything. I just need you to know that whoever's been putting poison in your ear is wrong. You belong here. She turned her hand over, laced her fingers through his. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. But even as she said it, Rose Thornton's words echoed in her mind. 1 month. The clock was already ticking. The next morning brought a different kind of trouble. Molly came running from the barn, face streaked with tears. Miss Grace! Miss Grace, come quick! Grace dropped her mending and ran. In the barn, she found Sam crouched beside his horse. The mare lay on her side, breathing hard, eyes rolling with pain. Her belly was swollen tight. What happened? Colic. Bad one. Sam's voice was taut. She got into something. Don't know what. Grace knelt beside the horse, put her hands on the distended belly, felt the muscles spasming beneath the skin. How long has she been down? Found her like this an hour ago. She was fine last night. Colic could kill a horse in hours. Grace had seen it happen. The gut, twisted blood flow stopped, and the animal died in agony. We need to get her up. Walking helps move whatever's blocking her system. She won't stand. Then we make her stand. For the next 4 hours they worked. Sam pulled on the halter while Grace pushed and prodded and refused to let the mare give up. Nettie brought water and rags. Jake appeared with ropes and leverage. The mare screamed, kicked, tried to bite, but inch by inch they got her to her feet. Walk her, Grace ordered. Don't let her stop. Don't let her lie down. Sam walked, around and around the corral, talking to the horse in a low, steady voice. Grace watched the mare's belly, waiting for signs of movement, waiting for the blockage to shift. An hour. 2. Then the mare stopped, humped her back, and passed the obstruction in a rush of relief. Sam whooped. Actually whooped like a boy at Christmas. She did it. She's going to be okay. Grace sagged against the fence, exhausted. She needs rest, soft food for a few days. But yes, she'll live. Sam turned to her. His face was covered in dust and sweat, and something that looked terrifyingly like hope. You saved her. We saved her. No. He crossed to where she stood, took her face in his hands. You saved her. You save everyone, Grace. It's what you do. He kissed her forehead, gentle, reverent, then pulled back like he'd been burned. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Don't apologize. Grace's heart was pounding. "Don't you dare apologize." They stood there inches apart, the air between them charged with everything they weren't saying. Molly's voice broke the spell. "Is the horse going to be okay?" Sam stepped back, cleared his throat. "Yeah, sweetheart, the horse is going to be fine." But his eyes stayed on Grace, and she knew with sudden certainty that nothing between them would ever be the same. Sunday came, church day. Grace had avoided town for weeks, but Sam insisted. "You hide, they win. You walk in with your head high, you take the power back." Easy for you to say. You're not the one they're calling a harlot. No, they just call me a fool, a man who lost his family because he cared more about his job than his home. Sam's jaw tightened. "I've heard every cruel thing this town has to say. It stopped mattering a long time ago." So Grace put on her best dress, the blue one she'd saved for special occasions. She pinned her hair carefully, put on the small silver earrings that had been her mother's, and climbed into the wagon beside Sam. Molly sat between them, swinging her feet and chattering about nothing. Nettie rode in the back, silent and watchful. The church was packed. Every eye turned when they walked in. Conversations stopped mid-word. The silence was so complete, Grace could hear her own heartbeat. Sam put his hand on the small of her back, guided her forward. They walked to a pew near the front, sat down. Molly squeezed in beside Grace and took her hand. "Don't worry," the child whispered. "I'll protect you." Grace's throat tightened. "Thank you, sweetheart." Reverend Stone took the pulpit. His eyes swept the congregation, pausing briefly on Grace. "Today's sermon is about the woman at the well." A murmur rippled through the pews. Everyone knew that story. The Samaritan woman with 5 husbands, the outcast, the sinner. Grace felt her face flame, but Reverend Stone continued. "We remember this woman for her shame, her scandal, her sin, but we forget the most important part of her story." He paused. Jesus talked to her, in a time and place where men didn't speak to women in public, where Jews didn't associate with Samaritans, where righteous people avoided sinners like plague. Jesus sat down and had a conversation. The church was utterly silent. He didn't lecture her, didn't condemn her, didn't make her prove she deserved his attention. He saw a person who was thirsty, and he offered water. Reverend Stone's voice rose. "That's what we're called to do, not to judge who deserves our mercy, not to decide who's worthy of compassion, just to see thirst and offer water." His eyes found Grace again. This time they were kind. "Some of you have been talking about who belongs in this community and who doesn't, about what's proper and what's shameful. Let me remind you, the only one qualified to cast stones is the one without sin, and last time I checked, that's none of us." After the service, the congregation filed out in awkward silence. Some people avoided Grace's eyes. Others nodded stiffly, acknowledging her existence, if not her welcome. A few, the Morrisons, whose son she'd saved, a young mother, whose baby she'd nursed through fever, stopped to thank her. But most kept their distance. Rose Thornton stood at the edge of the crowd watching. Her smile was small and cold and satisfied. 2 weeks left. That evening, Grace found Sam in the barn again. He was brushing the mare movements slow and steady. "Reverend Stone's a good man," she said. "He is. He took a risk today, defending me like that. He took a stand. There's a difference." Sam set down the brush. "Grace, I need to tell you something." Her stomach clenched. "What?" "Drake's been buying up property in town, the general store, the feed supplier, 2 of the smaller ranches." Sam's voice was flat. "He's also been talking to the bank about my loans." "Your loans?" "I borrowed money 2 years ago. Bad drought. Lost a lot of cattle. The bank's been patient, but if Drake puts pressure on them, he could call in the debt. He could take the ranch." Grace felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "Because of me." He's doing this because of me. He's doing this because he's a vindictive bastard who can't stand being told no. Sam took her shoulders. This isn't your fault. If I leave... No. Sam, listen to me. If I go back east, he has no reason to come after you. This whole thing started because I embarrassed him. If I disappear, then he wins. Sam's grip tightened. Then every bully with money learns that all they have to do is push hard enough and people will break. I won't break, Grace. And I won't let you break either. I can't let you lose your home because of me. You're not letting me do anything. I'm choosing. I'm choosing to fight. I'm choosing you. His voice cracked. Damn it, Grace. I'm choosing you. Don't you understand that? She stared at him. This man who'd lost everything and rebuilt himself from the ashes. This man who'd sworn off caring and was now standing in front of her heart, open, terrified, and determined. I understand, she whispered. Then stay. Whatever comes, we face it together. That's what I'm asking. Not forever. Not promises neither of us is ready to make. Just together. Can you do that? Grace thought about her mother sick in Philadelphia, her sister alone and frightened, the debts that hung over her family like a death sentence. She thought about Rose's ultimatum, Drake's threats, the town's whispers, and then she thought about Sam's hands on her face, his lips on her forehead, the way he looked at her like she was something precious. Together, she said. Yes, I can do that. The storm broke 3 days later. Not weather, something worse. Grace woke to the smell of smoke. She was out of bed and running before her mind caught up. Through the dark hallway, down the stairs, out the front door. The barn was burning. Flames clawed at the roof. Horses screamed inside. Men shouted and ran with buckets that were useless against the inferno. Sam emerged from the smoke leading 2 horses by their halters. His face was black with soot. His shirt was singed. Sam, get back. Get back in the house. Grace ignored him. She grabbed a bucket, joined the line, threw water at flames that laughed at her efforts. Jake appeared beside her. It's no good. The whole thing's going. The animals? We got most of them out. Lost 2. Maybe 3. Grace looked at this barn, at the flames consuming 4 years of Sam's work, at the smoke rising into the night sky like a funeral pyre. How did it start? Jake's face was grim. Found a lantern near the hay. Shattered. No way it fell on its own. Someone had done this. Someone had set the fire deliberately. Grace's blood turned to ice. By dawn, the barn was gone. Nothing left but charred beams and ash. Sam stood in the ruins, silent and still. Grace approached carefully. Sam? Don't. Let me help. How? He turned. His eyes were dead, empty. How are you going to help, Grace? Are you going to rebuild the barn with your bare hands? Are you going to replace the feed we lost? The tools? The medicine for the horses? I don't know, but I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together. Together. He laughed. Bitter. Broken. That's the word, isn't it? Together. Like it means something. It does mean something. Does it? Sam stepped closer. 3 years I kept this ranch going. 3 years I held on by my fingernails while the world tried to take everything. And then you showed up and I started believing again. Started hoping. And look what hoping got me. Grace flinched like he'd struck her. Sam saw it. Something flickered across his face. Regret. Pain. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. Her voice was steady, even though her heart was breaking. And maybe you're right. Maybe I am bad luck. Maybe everything I touch turns to ash. Grace. I'll pack my things. No. Sam grabbed her arm. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I just... His voice broke. I'm so tired. I'm so damn tired of losing things. Grace looked at his hand on her arm, at his face covered in soot and grief. Then stop pushing away the things you haven't lost yet. They stood in the ashes of his barn, both of them trembling. Both of them terrified. Both of them holding on to each other like the world was ending. Maybe it was, but they were still standing. Nettie found them there an hour later. She took one look at their faces and started issuing orders. Sam, wash up. You're scaring Molly. Grace, come help me with breakfast. Nobody's dying today and nobody's leaving. We've got work to do. Nettie, Sam started. I said wash up. Her voice brooked no argument. We'll rebuild the barn. We'll replace what we lost. And whoever did this will answer for it. But first we eat. Everything's easier with food in your belly. Grace followed Nettie into the house. Her hands shook as she cracked eggs. It was Drake, she said quietly. You know that. I know. He'll deny it. There's no proof. Probably. So what do we do? Nettie turned from the stove. Her eyes were fierce. We survive. That's what we do. We survive and we thrive, and we make that man choke on his own spite. He wants us beaten. We stand tall. He wants us broken. We rebuild stronger. He wants Grace Mercer gone from this town. Nettie smiled, cold, determined. He'll have to pry her from my cold, dead hands. Grace stared at this woman who'd lost her daughter, her husband, her freedom, who'd survived slavery and war and grief and still found room in her heart for hope. Why? Grace whispered. Why do you care so much? Because that's what family does, child. Nettie took her hands. And like it or not, you're family now. You've been family since the day you made Sam Cole laugh again. That man hadn't laughed in 4 years. You gave him that back. You think I'm going to let anyone take that away? Grace's eyes filled with tears. Now. Nettie squeezed her hands and released them. Help me make breakfast. We've got a fight ahead, and nobody fights on an empty stomach. 3 hours later, Deputy Vernon Hicks rode onto the ranch. Sam met him in the yard. Grace watched from the porch, Molly pressed against her side. Cole, heard about your barn. Heard or planned? Vernon's face tightened. Watch yourself. I'm done watching myself. Someone burned my barn. Someone who answers to Cornelius Drake. You want to pretend otherwise, that's your business, but we both know the truth. You're making accusations you can't prove. I'm making observations anyone with eyes can make. Sam stepped closer. Tell Drake something for me. Tell him this isn't over. Tell him I'm not the same man I was 4 years ago. The man who walked away from trouble, who kept his head down and hoped the world would leave him alone. Vernon shifted in his saddle. That a threat? That's a promise. He comes at me again. He comes at my people, and I'll show him exactly what a Texas Ranger does to men who threaten his family. The word hung in the air. Family. Vernon's eyes flicked to Grace, back to Sam. You're making a mistake, Cole. Drake's got power in this town. Drake's got money. That's not the same thing. Sam turned his back, walked toward the house. Get off my land, Vernon, and don't come back. That night, Grace found Sam on the porch again. But this time, she didn't hesitate. She sat down beside him, took his hand. You called me family. I did. Did you mean it? Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to face her. I meant every word. You Nettie Molly Jake. You're all I have. You're all I want to have. He raised her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles. I know it's too soon. I know we've only known each other a month, but I feel like I've been waiting for you my whole life. Grace's heart hammered against her ribs. Sam, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. He released her hand. Whatever happens next, whatever Drake throws at us, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you stayed. I'm glad too. They sat in silence, watching the stars appear one by one. The smell of smoke still lingered in the air, The ruins of the barn were a dark shadow against the horizon, but Grace felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real hope. The kind that didn't depend on money or security or the approval of strangers. The kind that came from knowing you weren't alone. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new threats, new pain. But tonight, sitting beside Sam Cole under the summer stars, Grace let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. She was wrong. The worst was still coming. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Grace recognized her sister's handwriting before she even opened it. Shaky, desperate, words crammed onto cheap paper like they couldn't come fast enough. Mother is dying. The doctors say weeks, maybe days. Please come home, please. I don't know what to do. Grace read it 3 times. Then she walked to the edge of the property and screamed into the empty sky until her throat was raw. Nettie found her there an hour later. Didn't ask questions. Just sat beside her in the dirt and waited. My mother's dying, Grace finally said. My sister's alone, and I'm here. 3,000 miles away, playing house while my family falls apart. You're not playing anything. I should be there. I should have been there all along. And how would you have gotten there? With what money? What plan? Nettie's voice was gentle but firm. You came west to save them. That didn't work out. But beating yourself up won't help them now. Nothing will help them now. That's grief talking. Grief and guilt and fear. Nettie took her hand. What do you need, child? Right now in this moment. Grace closed her eyes. I need to go home. I need to see my mother before she dies. I need to hold my sister and tell her she's not alone. Then that's what you do. I don't have money for a ticket. I don't have... Sam has money. Grace's eyes flew open. No, absolutely not. He's already lost the barn. The bank is threatening his loans. I won't take another cent from him. He'd give it freely. That's why I won't ask. Nettie studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. There might be another way. What way? The town owes you, all those people you helped, the Morrison boy, the Wilson baby, old Mr. Patterson's heart condition. Nettie's eyes sharpened. You saved lives, Grace, real lives. People don't forget that no matter what Rose Thornton tells them to believe. You think they'd give me money? I think if you asked for help, really asked, not demanded, some of them would remember what you did for them. Nettie stood, brushed off her skirt. Pride is a luxury, child. Your mama's dying. Time to decide what matters more. That evening, Grace told Sam about the letter. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he went to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a metal box. This is everything I've got saved. $300. Take it. Sam. Take it. I can't. The bank? The loans? I'll handle the bank. Your mother is dying, Grace. Nothing else matters. She stared at the box in his hands. $300. Enough for a ticket and then some. Enough to save her family. Enough to destroy his. No. The word came out harder than she intended. I won't be the reason you lose this ranch. I won't be another person who takes from you and leaves. You're not taking, I'm giving. It's the same thing. It's not. Sam set the box down, took her hands. When Martha died, everyone wanted to give me things. Food, sympathy, advice. I couldn't take any of it. It felt like charity, like pity, like admitting I couldn't survive on my own. His grip tightened. But here's what I learned: letting people help you isn't weakness. It's trust. It's saying, I believe you care about me enough that I'll let myself need you. His voice dropped. I need you to let me help Grace. Not because you're weak, because you trust me. Grace's vision blurred with tears. I do trust you. Then take the money. There's another way. She wiped her eyes. Nettie said, she said the people I helped might be willing to help me back. If I asked. Sam was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. That's fair. That's good. He released her hands. But keep this as backup. If asking doesn't work, you're not losing your mother because of pride. Grace took the box. It was heavier than she expected. Thank you. Don't thank me, just come back. The words hung in the air. Both of them heard what he wasn't saying. Come back to me. The next morning, Grace went to town. She started at the Morrison place. Sarah Morrison opened the door, surprised to see her. Miss Grace, is something wrong? My mother is dying, back in Philadelphia. I need to get to her, but I don't have money for a ticket. Grace forced herself to meet Sarah's eyes. Your son's leg healed. He's walking again. I'm not asking for payment. I'm asking for help. Whatever you can spare. Sarah was silent for a long moment. Then she disappeared into the house. She came back with $2 and a jar of preserves. It's not much. Times are hard. But you saved my boy's leg. Probably saved his life. Sarah pressed the money into Grace's hands. God bless you, Miss Grace, and Godspeed. Grace went to the next house, and the next. Not everyone gave. Some doors closed in her face. Some people pretended not to be home. Mrs. Patterson told her she ought to be ashamed, begging like a common vagrant. But others remembered. The Wilson family gave $5 and a prayer. Old Mr. Garrett, whose arthritis she'd eased with poultices, pressed a gold coin into her palm without a word. The Hendricks gave $3 and apologized it wasn't more. By noon, Grace had $47. Not enough. Not nearly enough. She was walking back toward the general store when she heard the voice. Well, well, the prodigal whore returns. Grace stopped, turned. Rose Thornton stood on the boardwalk, parasol in hand, smile sharp as broken glass. I heard about your little charity tour, going door to door with your hand out. Rose laughed. How the mighty have fallen. My mother is dying. How convenient. Excuse me. A dying mother, a desperate plea for money, a perfect excuse to run back east with whatever you've managed to squeeze from that foolish rancher. Rose stepped closer. I know your game, Miss Mercer. I've known it since the day you arrived. Grace's hands clenched at her sides. You don't know anything about me. I know women like you, pretty enough to catch a man's eye, pathetic enough to keep his pity. You found yourself a mark in Sam Cole, and you've been working him ever since. Sam isn't a mark. He's what your lover, your meal ticket, your path to respectability. Rose's voice dripped venom. He was mine, you know, before you. He was finally ready to move on, finally ready to live again, and then you stumbled in and stole everything I'd been waiting for. I didn't steal anything. You stole his attention, his protection, his heart. Rose's composure cracked. For just a moment, Grace saw something underneath the malice, something that looked almost like grief. 4 years I waited. 4 years I was patient and proper and everything a good widow should be. And you? You weren't even trying. Grace stared at her. This woman who'd threatened her, who'd probably helped Drake plan the barn fire, who'd done everything in her power to destroy her, and all because she was lonely. I'm sorry, Grace said quietly. Rose blinked. What? I'm sorry you're lonely. I'm sorry you lost what you thought you had. But Sam was never yours, Rose. He was just healing. And I didn't plan any of this. I was just surviving. Same as you. For a moment, something flickered in Rose's eyes. Uncertainty. Maybe even shame. Then her face hardened again. Save your pity. You'll need it for yourself when Drake is finished with you. What does that mean? Rose smiled. Cold. Triumphant. It means your little charity tour was a waste of time. Cornelius is calling in Sam's loans today. By this time tomorrow, that ranch won't exist. And neither will your precious sanctuary. Grace's blood turned to ice. You're lying. Am I go ask the bank? Rose turned away. Paused. Oh, and Miss Mercer. My offer still stands. Leave Silver Creek, and maybe I'll convince Cornelius to show mercy. Stay, and I'll make sure you lose everything, including him." She walked away. Grace stood frozen on the boardwalk, the world spinning around her. The bank. She had to get to the bank. Grace ran. Her skirts tangled around her legs. Her heart pounded against her ribs. She burst through the bank doors like a woman possessed. Mr. Dalton looked up from his desk. His face went carefully blank. "Miss Mercer, is it true? Are you calling in Sam Cole's loans?" Silence. "Answer me, please." Dalton removed his spectacles, polished them slowly. "Mr. Drake has purchased Mr. Cole's debt from the bank. The terms of the original loan allow the holder to demand full repayment at any time. Mr. Drake has chosen to exercise that option. He can't do that. He can, and he has." Dalton replaced his spectacles. "Mr. Cole has 30 days to pay the full amount. If he fails, the property becomes Mr. Drake's." 30 days. The barn was gone. The cattle had been sold at a loss. Sam had given her his savings. There was no way. "How much?" Grace's voice came out hollow. "How much does he owe?" Dalton hesitated. Then, $800. 800. Grace had 47. She walked out of the bank on numb legs. The sun was too bright. The street was too loud. Everything felt wrong, tilted like she was standing on the deck of a sinking ship. She'd brought this on him. Drake wanted her gone. That's all he'd ever wanted. And because Sam had protected her, sheltered her, chosen her, he was going to lose everything. Grace walked to the edge of town, found a bench, sat down. She had to think, had to find a way out. But her mind kept circling back to the same terrible truth. This was her fault. All of it. The barn, the loans, the whispers and the threats, and the slow destruction of everything Sam had built. She'd thought she was done being a burden. Thought she'd finally found a place where she belonged. She'd been wrong. "You look like someone kicked your dog." Grace looked up. A man stood before her, middle-aged, weather-worn, wearing a badge she didn't recognize. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" "No, ma'am. But I know you." The man touched his hat. "Name's Marshall Thomas Whitfield, Federal Service. I've been looking for Cornelius Drake for 6 months. Word is you might be able to help me find what I need." Grace stared at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean Drake's dirty. We've known it for years. Mining fraud, bribery, probably worse." Whitfield sat down beside her. "Problem is, nobody will talk. He's got this town so scared they'd rather watch him steal than stand up." "So why come to me?" "Because you're not scared." Whitfield's eyes were sharp, assessing. "You threw his money in his face. You stood up to him in front of witnesses. And now he's trying to destroy you for it." He leaned closer. "Miss Mercer, I need someone brave enough to testify, to tell a judge exactly what Drake did to you, the false promises, the abandonment, the threats. Testimony won't save Sam's ranch. Maybe not. But it might put Drake in prison. And if Drake's in prison, he can't call in loans. He can't burn barns. He can't hurt anyone else." Grace felt something stir in her chest. Not hope exactly. Something fiercer. Anger. "What would I have to do?" "Tell the truth. That's all. Tell a courtroom full of people exactly what kind of man Cornelius Drake really is. He has a deputy in his pocket. Probably judges too. Federal courts in Denver. His money doesn't reach that far." Whitfield stood. "Think about it, Miss Mercer. I'll be in town for 3 days. After that, I'm gone, and so is your chance." He touched his hat again and walked away. Grace sat on the bench until the sun started to set. Then she went back to the ranch. Sam was waiting on the porch. His face was taut with worry. "Grace, thank God. I heard about the bank. Jake rode in to warn me." "It's true. Drake bought your debt. He's calling it in." "I know." Sam's jaw was set. I've got 30 days. You've got $300. That's not enough. I'll find a way. How? Grace climbed the porch steps, stood in front of him. How, Sam? The barn's gone. The cattle are sold. Where's the money going to come from? I don't know yet. There's another option. Sam's eyes narrowed. What option? Grace told him about Marshall Whitfield, about the federal investigation, about the possibility of putting Drake behind bars. When she finished, Sam was very quiet. You'd have to testify. Yes. In Denver. In a courtroom. With Drake's lawyers trying to tear you apart. Yes. It's dangerous. If Drake finds out before the trial... I know. Grace took his hands. I know it's risky. I know it might not work. But it's the only weapon we have. Drake took everything else. He can't take the truth. Sam stared at her. His eyes were bright with something she couldn't name. You'd do that? For me, for this ranch? I'd do it for us. For Nettie and Molly and Jake. For everyone Drake has hurt. Grace squeezed his hands. I'm tired of running, Sam. I'm tired of being afraid. I want to fight. He pulled her into his arms. God, I love you. The words were muffled against her hair. Grace froze. What? Sam pulled back, looked her in the eyes. I love you. I've loved you since you threw that money in Drake's face. Maybe before. I don't know. I just know that I can't imagine my life without you in it. Grace's heart hammered. Sam, You don't have to say it back. I know it's too fast. I know we barely know each other, but I needed you to know. Before whatever comes next. I needed you to hear it. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you too. Sam's face transformed. The tension, the fear, the grief of 4 years alone, all of it fell away. And underneath was just a man. A good man. Looking at her like she'd hung the moon. He kissed her. Not on the forehead this time. Not gentle or reverent. This kiss was desperate, hungry, full of everything they'd been holding back. Grace kissed him back, wrapped her arms around his neck, let herself feel what she'd been afraid to feel. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Okay, Sam said. We fight. Together. Together. The next morning, Grace found Marshall Whitfield at the hotel and told him she would testify. 3 days later, they left for Denver. The journey took 4 days by stagecoach. Grace spent most of it preparing. Whitfield went over her testimony again and again. The promises Drake had made. The letters he'd written. The moment he'd abandoned her at the depot. Defense is going to say you're bitter, Whitfield warned. Scorned woman looking for revenge. I am bitter. I am scorned. Grace's voice was steady. But that doesn't make what he did any less true. Sam rode beside the stagecoach the whole way. He'd insisted on coming even though Jake needed him at the ranch. Even though every day away was a day closer to losing everything. Some things matter more than land, he'd said when she protested. You're one of them. The trial began on a Monday. The courtroom was packed. Word had spread about the woman from Silver Creek who was willing to stand against Cornelius Drake. People came from 3 counties to watch. Drake sat at the defense table flanked by expensive lawyers. His face was calm, confident. Like this was a minor inconvenience that would soon be resolved. Grace sat in the witness chair and told her story. She told them about the letters, the promises, the dreams she'd built on his words. She told them about selling her mother's ring, about the 18-day journey, about standing on that platform in the July heat, reading 9 words that destroyed her life. She told them about collapsing in the street, about Sam finding her, about Drake coming to the ranch with money and threats. She told them about the barn. You have no proof I burned that barn, Drake interrupted. Counsel, control your client, the judge snapped. But Drake kept talking. This woman is a liar, a fortune hunter. She came west looking for a wealthy husband, and when she didn't get one, she latched onto another. Mr. Drake. She's been living in sin with Samuel Cole for 2 months. Everyone in Silver Creek knows it. And now she's here spinning lies trying to destroy me because I wouldn't marry a desperate, penniless... Enough! The judge's voice cracked like thunder. The courtroom fell silent. Mr. Drake, one more outburst and I'll have you removed. The judge turned to Grace. Continue, Miss Mercer. Grace looked at Drake, saw the hatred in his eyes, the certainty that he would win. She looked at Sam sitting in the gallery. He nodded once, encouraging. I came west to save my family, Grace said quietly. My father died owing money. My mother is sick. My sister is alone. Cornelius Drake offered me a way out. I was desperate enough to believe him. She stood up from the witness chair, walked toward the jury. Maybe that makes me foolish. Maybe I should have known better. But does my foolishness excuse his cruelty? Does my desperation justify his lies? She stopped, looked each juror in the eye. I'm not asking you to believe me because I'm a saint. I'm not one. I'm asking you to believe me because it's the truth. Cornelius Drake promised to marry me. He lured me across the country. And when I got here, he threw me away like garbage. Grace turned to face Drake. That's not business. That's not complicated circumstances. That's cruelty, pure and simple. And if you let him get away with it, he'll do it again, to someone else, someone who might not survive it. She sat back down. Her hands were shaking, but her voice had been steady. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the foreman stood and read the verdict. Guilty on 3 counts of fraud. Guilty on 2 counts of breach of promise. Guilty on 1 count of conspiracy to commit arson. Drake went white. The judge sentenced him to 8 years in federal prison. As the bailiffs led him away, Drake twisted toward Grace. This isn't over, he snarled. You hear me? This isn't... The door closed behind him. Grace sat in the empty courtroom for a long time after everyone else had left. Sam sat beside her holding her hand. You did it, he said. We did it. No. He turned her face toward him. You stood up there alone. You told the truth when it would have been easier to hide. You saved us. Grace leaned her head against his shoulder. What happens now? Now we go home. We rebuild. We start over. The loans. With Drake in prison, his assets are frozen. The bank's already agreed to renegotiate. We'll manage. Grace closed her eyes. Let herself feel it. The relief, the exhaustion, the impossible fragile hope. I still need to go to Philadelphia. My mother... I know. Sam kissed her temple. We'll figure it out. Whatever you need. Whatever it takes. You keep saying that. Because I keep meaning it. She smiled. Small and tired and real. Take me home, Sam. With pleasure, ma'am. They walked out of the courthouse into afternoon sunshine. Marshal Whitfield was waiting by the stagecoach. Hell of a job, Miss Mercer. Hell of a job. Thank you for giving me the chance. You gave yourself the chance. I just provided the stage. He tipped his hat. You ever need anything, you know where to find me. Sam helped Grace into the stagecoach, climbed up beside her, took the reins. Ready? Grace looked back at the courthouse one last time, then forward, toward the mountains, toward home. Ready. The journey back to Silver Creek took 3 days. Grace spent most of it sleeping against Sam's shoulder, exhausted in a way that went deeper than physical tiredness. She'd emptied herself in that courtroom, poured out every hurt, every fear, every ounce of courage she possessed. Now she felt hollowed out, waiting to be filled with something new. Sam didn't push her to talk. He just held her hand and watched the road and let the silence do its healing work. On the second night, camped beside a creek, he finally spoke. "I sent a telegram from Denver to your sister." Grace sat up. "What?" "Told her you were coming, that you'd be there within the month." Sam poked at the fire, not meeting her eyes. "Also told her I'd be covering the travel costs, and anything else your family needs." "Sam, you can't afford—" "I can afford whatever I decide I can afford." He looked at her then. His eyes were fierce, certain. "Your mother's dying, Grace. Your sister's scared. This isn't the time for pride. Not yours, not mine." Grace's throat tightened. "Why are you so good to me?" "Because you deserve it." Sam moved closer, took her face in his hands. "Because for 4 years, I forgot what it meant to care about someone. You reminded me. That's worth more than money." "I don't know how to repay you." "You already have." He kissed her forehead. "Come back. That's all I ask. Go see your mother. Hold your sister. Do what you need to do. Then come back." "What if—" Grace's voice broke. "What if I can't? What if my family needs me there? What if—" "Then we figure it out." Sam's grip tightened. "Together. That's the word, remember. Whatever happens, we face it together." Grace pressed her forehead to his. "I love you." "I know." He smiled, small and tired and real. "I love you too." They rode into Silver Creek on a Thursday afternoon. The first thing Grace noticed was the silence. No whispers, no pointed looks, no doors closing as she passed. The second thing she noticed was Mrs. Morrison running toward them. "Miss Grace? Thank God you're back." The woman was breathless, face flushed with urgency. "It's Molly. She's sick. Real sick. Nettie sent me to find the doctor, but he's 2 days out and—" Grace was off the horse before Sarah finished speaking. "Where is she?" "The ranch. Nettie's been with her all night. High fever. Won't keep anything down. She keeps asking for you." Grace ran. She barely felt the ground beneath her feet. Barely heard Sam calling after her. All she could think was Molly. Sweet, brave, orphaned Molly, who'd taken her hand on that first Sunday in church and whispered, "I'll protect you." Now it was Grace's turn to protect her. She burst through the ranch house door and found Nettie in the small bedroom. Molly lay on the bed, face flushed, breathing shallow and fast. Her eyes were closed, her small body shook with chills. "How long?" Grace demanded, already checking the child's pulse. "Started yesterday morning, got worse overnight." Nettie's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "I tried everything I know, cold cloths, willow bark tea, nothing's working." Grace pressed her hand to Molly's forehead, burning hot. She checked the child's throat, her ears, her chest. "There's a rash. See, under her arms." Grace pushed up Molly's sleeve. Small red dots clustered like stars. "Scarlet fever." Nettie went white. "Oh, Lord. I need clean water, lots of it, and any honey you have. We need to keep her hydrated and bring the fever down." "Will she—" Nettie couldn't finish the question. Grace looked at the old woman, at the fear in her eyes, at the grief that was already gathering, familiar and hungry. "I'm going to fight for her, Nettie, with everything I have." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got." The next 3 days blurred together. Grace barely slept, barely ate. She stayed by Molly's bedside, fighting the fever with cold compresses and careful doses of medicine she mixed from memory. Sam brought her food she didn't eat, sat with her during the long nights, held her when she cried. "She's so small," Grace whispered on the second night. "So small, and so brave, and she's been through so much already. It's not fair." "Life isn't fair." Sam's voice was rough. "But sometimes it's merciful. Sometimes it lets us keep the people we love." "I couldn't save my father." "You couldn't have saved your father no matter what you did. Some things are beyond our power." He turned her face toward him. But this isn't one of them. You're doing everything right, Grace. Everything. What if it's not enough? Then we'll grieve together. But we're not there yet. Don't give up. On the third morning, Molly's fever broke. Grace was changing the cold compress when she felt it. The skin under her hands was cooler. Not cold, just normal. Human. Molly's eyes fluttered open. Miss Grace. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here. I had bad dreams. The child's voice was weak but clear. I dreamed you went away and didn't come back. I'm not going anywhere. Grace brushed the hair from Molly's face. I promise. Even when you go see your mama, Grace's heart clenched. Even then, I'll come back. I'll always come back. Molly's hand found hers, squeezed weakly. Good, because you're my family now. The child's eyes drifted closed. I decided. Grace sat there for a long time holding Molly's hand, letting the tears fall. That's where Nettie found her an hour later. She's going to be okay. She's going to be okay. Nettie sagged against the doorframe. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Don't thank the Lord. Thank the willow bark and the cold water and this stubborn child who refused to give up. I'll thank all three. Nettie crossed to where Grace sat, put her hands on Grace's shoulders. And I'll thank you for coming back, for fighting, for being exactly what this family needed. Grace looked up at her. Family. You heard the child, she decided. Nettie smiled. Seems like you're stuck with us now. Grace laughed, a broken, exhausted, joyful sound. I can live with that. A week later, Grace was packing for Philadelphia. The ticket sat on her dresser, bought and paid for. 2 weeks east, a month with her family, 2 weeks back. Sam had insisted on first-class passage both ways. You'll be more comfortable. It's too much money. It's my money to spend. And I'm spending it on you. Get used to it. She was folding her last dress when Sam appeared in the doorway. Can I come in? It's your house. It's our house. He crossed to where she stood. Or I'd like it to be. Grace's hand stilled. What? Sam reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box, opened it. Inside was a ring, simple gold band, small diamond that caught the light like a captive star. I know the timing's wrong. I know you're leaving tomorrow. I know we've only known each other a few months, and there's 100 reasons this is crazy. Sam's voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. But I also know that I love you. And I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And I'm tired of waiting for the perfect moment because perfect moments don't exist. He got down on one knee. Grace Ellen Mercer, will you marry me? Grace stared at him. This man who'd found her dying in the street, who'd given her shelter and safety and hope, who'd fought for her, stood by her, loved her without asking for anything in return. Yes. The word came out before she could think, before she could list all the reasons it was too fast, too soon, too uncertain. Yes, she said again. Yes, I'll marry you. Sam's face transformed. The tension, the fear, the careful hope, all of it melted into pure, unguarded joy. He slid the ring onto her finger, stood, pulled her into his arms. You mean it? You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Even with everything that's happened. Even with... Grace kissed him. Hard, fierce. A kiss that said everything words couldn't. When they broke apart, both of them were breathless. I need to go to Philadelphia, she said. I need to see my mother, hold my sister, say goodbye to my old life. I know. But I'm coming back. This is my home now. You're my home. Sam pressed his forehead to hers. I'll be here, waiting, for as long as it takes. It won't take long. Grace touched his face. I've got too much to come back to. The next morning, the whole ranch came to see her off. Nettie pressed a package of food into her hands. "For the journey, train food's garbage." Jake tipped his hat. "Safe travels, Miss Grace. We'll keep the place standing while you're gone." Molly hugged her so tight Grace could barely breathe. "You promised to come back." "I promised, and I keep my promises." "I know." The child pulled back, wiped her eyes. "That's why I love you." Grace knelt down, looked Molly in the eye. "I love you too, sweetheart. So much." Sam drove her to the depot in silence. He helped her onto the platform, carried her bags to the train. "This is where I found you," he said quietly. "Right here on this platform. I remember. You were half dead, sunburned, alone." Sam took her hands. "Look at you now." Grace looked down at the ring on her finger, at the engagement that meant everything, at the future stretching out before her like an open road. "You saved my life that day." "No." Sam shook his head. "You saved your own life. I just gave you a place to do it." The train whistle blew. Final boarding. Grace kissed him one last time, long and deep and full of promise. "I'll write every day. I'll read every word. Take care of Molly, and Nettie, and yourself." "I will." Sam touched her face. "I love you, Grace Cole." She smiled. "I'm not Grace Cole yet. You will be, soon as you get back." "Is that a threat?" "That's a promise." She boarded the train, found her seat, pressed her face to the window. Sam stood on the platform, hat in hand, watching. The train began to move. Grace watched him get smaller and smaller until he was just a speck on the horizon. Then he was gone. She touched the ring on her finger. Philadelphia was 2 weeks away. Her mother was dying. Her sister needed her. But for the first time in her life, Grace wasn't running from something. She was running toward something. And she knew exactly where home was waiting. Philadelphia was harder than she expected. Her mother was smaller than she remembered. Fragile in a way that broke Grace's heart. But her eyes lit up when Grace walked through the door. "My girl, my beautiful girl." "I'm here, Mama. I'm here." She didn't leave her mother's side for 3 days. They talked about everything. About Grace's father gone too soon. About the hard years after his death. About the choices Grace had made, the risks she'd taken, the man she'd found at the end of the road. "He sounds good," her mother said on the 4th night. "This Sam of yours." "He is good. The best man I've ever known." "And he loves you." "Yes, Mama, he loves me." Her mother's hand found hers, squeezed weakly. "Then I can die happy." "Don't talk like that." "Grace." Her mother's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm tired. I've been tired for the long time. I held on because I needed to see you settled. Needed to know you'd be okay." "I am okay." "I know. I can see it in your eyes." Her mother smiled. "You look like your father did when he proposed to me. Like you've found something worth living for." Grace couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight. "Go back to him," her mother whispered. "Go back and build a beautiful life. Have babies. Plant gardens. Be happy." "I will, Mama. I promise." "Good." Her mother's eyes drifted closed. "Good." She died 3 days later. Grace held her hand as she went. Felt the moment the life left her body, felt the absence settle over the room like a blanket. Sarah, her sister, wept in the corner. Grace didn't cry. Not yet. She'd cry later when she was alone. When the numbness wore off and the grief could find her. For now she had work to do. The funeral was small. A few neighbors. An old friend of her father's. The minister who'd baptized Grace as a baby. Afterward, Grace sat with Sarah in their mother's empty house. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. She was 17, too young to be alone, too old to be treated like a child. "Now you have a choice." Grace took her sister's hands. You can stay here, finish your schooling. I'll send money every month. You'll be comfortable. Or, or you can come with me to Colorado. There's a ranch, a family, a life. Grace squeezed her hands. It won't be easy. It's hard work and hot summers and a town that's only just started to accept me. But it's home, and you'd be welcome there. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. You really love him? This rancher? More than I knew I could love anyone. And he'd take me in. A sister-in-law he's never met. He'd welcome you. They all would. Sarah looked around the empty house, at the memories and the grief and the silence. Okay, she said. I'll come. They arrived in Silver Creek 6 weeks after Grace had left. The train pulled into the station on a September afternoon, the summer heat finally breaking the first hints of autumn in the air. Sam was waiting on the platform. Beside him stood Nettie, Molly, Jake, and what looked like half the town. Grace stepped off the train and stopped dead. What? Sam crossed to her in 3 long strides, swept her into his arms, kissed her like they were the only 2 people in the world. When he finally let her breathe, Grace saw that he was crying. I missed you, he said. God, I missed you. I missed you too. I'm sorry about your mother. I know. Grace touched his face. I got your letters. All of them. I meant every word. I know that too. Sarah appeared beside them, looking overwhelmed. You must be Sarah. Sam extended his hand. I'm Sam Cole. Your sisters talked about you constantly. Sarah shook his hand, eyes wide. She talked about you too. A lot. Good things, I hope. Mostly. Sarah's lips twitched. Some concerns about your stubborn streak. Sam laughed, a real laugh, full and warm. She's not wrong about that. He turned to the waiting crowd. Come on. Everyone wants to meet you both. Grace looked at the faces before her. Some she recognized. The Morrisons, old Mr. Garrett, the Wilson family with their healthy, thriving baby, and some she didn't expect. Rose Thornton stood at the edge of the crowd. Her face was uncertain, ashamed. Grace walked toward her. Rose flinched. Miss Grace, I heard you testified at Drake's sentencing hearing. Rose nodded stiffly. I told them what I knew, about the barn, about the threats, about... She swallowed. About my part in it. That took courage. That took guilt. Rose met her eyes. I was wrong, about you, about everything. I let jealousy turn me into someone I don't recognize. Grace studied this woman who had been her enemy, saw the regret, the shame, the desperate hope for forgiveness. I accept your apology. Rose's eyes widened. Just like that. Just like that. Grace glanced back at Sam, at Molly, at the family waiting for her. I spent too long carrying anger. It's heavy. I'm tired of heavy. Rose's composure cracked. Tears spilled down her carefully powdered cheeks. Thank you, she whispered. I don't deserve it, but thank you. Nobody deserves mercy, Mrs. Thornton. That's what makes it mercy. Grace walked back to Sam, took his hand. Ready to go home. More than ready. The wedding happened 3 weeks later. They held it at the ranch under a canopy of autumn leaves. Reverend Stone officiated. Nettie cried. Molly threw flower petals with aggressive enthusiasm. Grace wore her mother's wedding dress, altered by Sarah's clever hands. Sam wore his father's suit, cleaned and pressed for the first time in years. The vows were simple. I promise to shelter you, Sam said, even when the storm is my own making. I promise to fight for you, beside you, never against you. I promise to love you until my last breath and probably long after. Grace's voice shook, but held. I promise to heal you even when you don't know you're wounded. I promise to stay when leaving would be easier. I promise to choose you every day in every way for the rest of my life. Reverend Stone smiled. By the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Sam, kiss your bride." He did, thoroughly. The crowd cheered. Molly squealed. Nettie wept harder. And somewhere Grace was certain her mother and father were smiling. That night, alone in their room, Sam held Grace close. "Any regrets?" "Not one. Even though you came west to marry a rich man and ended up with a stubborn rancher." Grace laughed. "I came west desperate and broken. I found a home. I'd say that's a trade up." "You're not broken anymore." "Neither are you." Sam was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you believe in second chances? Really believe?" Grace thought about her father dying in her arms, about Cornelius Drake and his 9-word betrayal, about collapsing in the street, certain her life was over. She thought about Sam finding her, carrying her home, loving her back to life. "I believe we make our own chances," she said finally. "I believe mercy finds us when we're brave enough to accept it. And I believe that you and I were meant to find each other, even if the path to get here was harder than it should have been." Sam kissed her forehead. "I love you, Grace Cole." "I love you too, Sam Cole." Outside, the autumn wind whispered through the trees. Somewhere in the house, Molly was giggling about something. Nettie was probably making tea. Sarah was settling into her new room, her new life. Inside this room, in this moment, Grace felt something she'd forgotten was possible. Peace. Not the absence of struggle, not the end of challenge. Just the quiet certainty that whatever came next, she wouldn't face it alone. She'd come west to marry a stranger and save her family. She'd found something better. She'd found home. And home, Grace knew now, wasn't a place. It was a choice to stay when leaving was easier, a choice to fight when surrender was tempting, a choice to love when fear said to hide. Grace had made her choice, and she would make it again every day for the rest of her life. Because that's what family meant. That's what love meant. That's what home had always meant. She just hadn't known it until a wounded cowboy pulled her out of the dust and carried her towards something worth believing in. Now she knew, and she was never letting go.